Top five. Top five. Top five. Top five. Top five.
We are going to now move on to our top fives of this week. For those of you who are regular listeners and have caught at least our other podcast that we've done, you will know that every week we're going to pick like a theme from films, and we're going to pick our top five films from that theme. It's always nice to try and link it in with something current in the cinema. Our top five this week is films about drug abuse. That's kind of fitting right now because on release, one of the big films with Oscar nods is the film Flight, in which Denzel Washington plays an airline pilot who is battling his own demons with drugs and alcohol. So this was Nick's pick, and I think it's a great one. I was really struggling with this up until yesterday, and then I googled like a list of... It's weird, you type in on Google films about drug abuse and they bring up like 20, 30 different lists. It's lots of people are making
it's quite open-ended, I suppose, because it could be about drug smuggling, drug abuse.
Well, I've tried to be as open-ended as possible in terms of that. Yeah, I thought it was drug abuse. Are we doing drugs, or is it films about drugs, or is it...
Well, where there's drug trafficking, there's often drug abuse.
Well, that's an argument I intend to make as well.
Really?
Yep. So, you want to go first?
I'm going to go first.
Go for it.
Number 5, Blow, 2001. Johnny Depp at his finest. It's a biopic. Like Donnie Brasco, you can tell that Johnny Depp's really done his homework.
Yeah.
He's a fine actor, and what I think he brings to this story, if anyone knows the story about this famous sort of a drug smuggler, drug dealer, Johnny Depp really brings a sense of real character and emotion to this perhaps larger than life news story character, and it's a fantastic performance, fantastic film. There's some great scenes, a great soundtrack, and Penelope Cruz, she's sexy, but she's a bitch.
In that film, absolutely. Yeah.
But in other films, she's just a sexy bitch. So number 5?
Yours was Blow. Yes. My number 5 is Dazed and Confused.
Okay.
And I felt like, it's going to be a serious list by and large, but I think it's important to look at a film that sort of tackles the lighter side of substance abuse.
Sure.
And obviously, drugs is a serious concept, and I understand fully that lives have been completely destroyed by drugs use for families and people that are addicted to it. But it's a fact that there is a side of the population, a portion of the drug taking population, that take recreational drugs and just generally have a good time with it, and don't go and it doesn't go any further than that. They kind of blend it in with their real lives. For good or bad, I'm not condoning drug use in any way, shape or form on this podcast.
Does that count as drug abuse then, since we're not really abusing?
Well, I mean, I think there's some characters in there that are sort of slipping that way. You could say there's some characters that who got trapped in that and couldn't really move on from it.
The seesaw swings both ways.
Absolutely, but it's a film. There are drugs in it, and I suppose it's not strictly about substance abuse, but there are sort of hints at the road you can go down if you're not in control. Directed by Richard Linklater, who did things like School of Rock and Before Sunrise and Sunset. I like going back to it because there's a lot of kind of familiar faces at a younger age. You've got Mila Jovovich, or however you say that.
Jovovich, huh?
Jovovich, doesn't really matter. Ben Affleck, Matthew McConaughey, Renée Zellweger's in there for about 30 seconds as well.
Great turn by McConaughey as well.
Yeah, and he's one of those characters that it's maybe a little bit more depressing for him. He's kind of the one that hasn't quite broken the cycle.
Yeah,
and he's
picking girls from high school when he's getting older. And
I get older, they stay the same age.
Yeah, great line.
Oh, I'll tell you. That's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older, they stay the same age.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
It's kind of lighthearted. There's a strong feeling of nostalgia in it. I know, we didn't grow up in American high schools, but I think we can kind of relate to those characters. It's an interesting multi-stranded film based around the last day at school, and there's all sorts of things going on. There's like young kids getting tormented by the older kids. There's everyone meeting up at a big party. There's fights. There's relationships ending and starting, and it's just, you don't have to have gone to high school in America. Going to high school in the Western world, you can kind of sort of appreciate that kind of the kind of themes that throws up with it, and it is a terrific soundtrack as well.
How cool is that keg party they have in the woods?
Yeah,
and they've all got their cars parked.
Yeah,
you want to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's nothing wrong with that aspect of drug culture.
Well,
But with that comes the other side, which
yes, exactly,
we'll
and,
touch on.
there is a far more serious side to it as well.
So, in the same vein, it's quite good that this is working out like this. But my number 4 is Human Traffic, which is almost a kind of modern British version of Days and Confused to some extent. It's the story of a weekend or the weekend. It has these young British people planning and then enjoying, and then the inevitable come down of the weekend. It's pretty good. I don't know if you've seen it. Yes,
I have, yeah. It was a favourite in high school.
Yeah, it's kind of like a snapshot of your Pete Tong, dance anthems generation. It's pretty harmless fun for the most part.
Yeah.
A good turn by our friend the fruit seller Danny Dyer.
I was going to say it's one of the only films where I found him tolerable.
Yeah,
certainly.
But he plays that one that perhaps is slightly pushing it a bit too far.
Yeah.
And he has a bit of a lost character. But John Sim.
Yep.
From Doctor Who and other sorts.
What was that police one that he was in? Life on Mars?
Yeah, that was a big hit.
Yep.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, it's not a terribly deep film.
No.
But I don't think it's supposed to be.
No.
It's got a snapshot of people's lives and a bit of sort of rave culture.
Yeah, I think it's accurate. I think it's accurate. I think it does well. It's faithful to its subject matter.
It does hint at some problems to do with drugs, but I mean, that's not the point of the film, I think.
No.
Yeah.
No. Okay, good. All right, moving on to my number 4, and again, this one, it's more lighthearted, but it does kind of show the more serious things with that. It's With Nail and I.
Good one.
From 1987, directed by Bruce Robinson, who he came out of retirement to do the Rum Diaries last year.
Oh, yeah.
With the Johnny Depp and another film kind of about substance abuse, but not particularly interesting. But With Neo and I think is fantastic. Richard E. Grant and Paul McGann are in the main roles, and it's just basically them drinking an awful lot and stumbling about the countryside pissed as newts, and they get into scrapes. And again, like Human Traffic, it's kind of inconsequential. There's kind of melancholic undertones all the way through it.
I would
think.
say an implied tragedy.
Absolutely, especially at the end. Standouts for me, apart from the main two, you've got Ralph Brown in there as Danny, who's kind of their psychopathic friend in the beginning, who baits With Nail into like a drinking
shades of Super Hands from Peep Show.
Absolutely, and it's funny to see that Ralph Brown pop up years later in Wayne's World 2, kind of playing the same character as the burnt out roadie, telling stories about beating Sri Lankan shop owners to death with their own shoes. And it's kind of because you think that's probably the same guy almost.
See, that film, I think it would have been good if in the extras you just saw Morrissey writing all the songs in the corner of every scene. I hate Morrissey, so I know you love him.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that's a story for another day.
And then also, I think the standout is Richard Griffiths as Uncle Monty, who, the
pesty.
Yes, the buggering, bumbling, drunken.
He's a
uncle.
nightmare.
Yeah,
isn't it though?
He's hilarious though. I intend to have you, boy, even if it's by buggery, I think is one of the lines he says, which, if someone drunkenly slurs that to you in a shadowy cottage in the middle of nowhere, I can't think of many more terrifying situations.
Sure.
Yep. So that's my number 4, With Nail and I.
I went for my number 3.
Oh, before you continue, I forgot to say, when we did this, I wrote down on a piece of paper a film that I am so sure is going to be in your top 5.
Really?
Yeah, I think
Should we just put
that's
that
it
down
there.
there?
That's it there. If you say it at any point, I will show you, and at the end, I'm sure it's going to be in there.
Really?
But yeah. Okay. It's not been in your first 2 though, so we'll see.
Number 3, it's a real heavy hitter when it comes to the problems of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
It really made me think about my life, and it really made me really wonder myself where my car was. And it's Dude, Where's My Car? With Ashton Kutcher and Sean William Scott, and they're tackling the tragic case of being so wasted that you can't remember what's happened to your car. And how did they go about doing this? They decided that maybe the best idea is to get stoned again and retrace their footsteps. and there's aliens, there's jocks, there's a hot girl from high school who I think her character name is Kirsty Boner.
I'm not saying anything about this.
There's some emus for some reason.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, I stopped taking drugs as soon as I finished watching that film. It's from 2000, a mere year after Johnny Depp tackled Blow, and you can see the influences throughout.
And you thought,
I don't want to
just
ruin.
drawn a line under it there, but no, there was more to say, and Ashton Kutcher was the man to say it. And yes, there was a character called Kirsty Boner in it. You're quite
Kirsty
right.
Boner, that's it. And the funny thing about Ashton Kutcher's career is he took over from Charlie Sheen when the drugs were too much for him. So Ashton Kutcher's certainly sensitive to drugs culture and the problems that it can cause. And this is really his poem to drug culture, I'd say, and my number 3.
Good. I don't know how I can follow that, but I shall try with my number 3 entry, which is actually our friend Tony on Facebook suggested this one. I actually had it already, but it's a good suggestion. It is The Basketball Diaries.
Yeah.
From 1995, starring a young Leonardo DiCaprio and a young Mark Wahlberg in early performances. And, you know, we've been a little bit tongue-in-cheek with our lists so far. Well, we've had some serious ones, but some tongue-in-cheek stuff. But I think with this one, it kind of shows, you know, you got some promising athletes, or, you know, they're on the right track. They've definitely on the road to something quite positive in quite a negative place, and then they're kind of dragged down by their situation as well, which is, you know, hard to watch, but it's very, very well done by DiCaprio and Wahlberg. I got into a bit of an argument with people from my course this week about Mark Wahlberg, because he can be very good, but also sometimes I think he can put in some really, really dodgy performances, and I thought this was one of them, but having gone back and sort of re-examined The Basketball Diaries, I can say that he's very strong in it as well.
Yeah.
And it's also a rare movie performance from the Sweet Valley twins as well.
No way.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're
Jessica
in there.
and what's the other one called?
Sweet Valley.
I just call them both Jessica.
I just call them both Sweet Valley.
There are another two that don't tip well in my cafe.
No, do they not?
No.
Oh dear. Well,
maybe one of them does, but I can't tell.
And they're in a kind of breakout role, trying to sort of get rid of the good girl image, I suppose, in their performances there, and clearly it didn't really work for them, because I don't think they got much work after that. But yeah, Basketball Diaries, I think, is just a really, really hard-hitting cautionary tale, if you will. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic one.
And both lead actors still going strong today.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, you see DiCaprio in Django Unchained, where he's just having the time of his life.
Isn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or is he? Because I heard he was quite uncomfortable with it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't hear that.
Dropping the M-bombs like Michael Caine.
Yeah,
He wasn't happy
absolutely.
about that.
Yeah.